Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we'll be working with imperatives, modal verbs, some sequence expressions, and some other expressions. This will all be part of our instructions video, which is our extra class of October 3rd. So take a look. The first aspect we're going to see is imperatives, and the use of them. We use it to provide orders, directions, and give instructions. Then we have modal verbs. We use modal verbs to change the idea of a phrase. After all, we have a sequence or sequence expressions. We use them to create an order, to create a sequence of ideas. Last but not least, we have some other expressions, and we use them to provide extra information that can always help. So we are going to have two cases. First one being an America visa, and then we are going to talk about organizing a trip. So the first example is getting the US visa, which is quite complicated because you do have to follow a sequence of actions. The first one is fill in the TS-160 form. So we used first because it is the number one activity that you have to do. Second, schedule a date. We use second because the number 2 comes after the number 1, and you do have to schedule a date at CASV and the American consulate. Then you pay for the interview. We use then because of its idea of continuity. After that, you go to CASV. We used after that because it gives the idea that there was something before, there was an action before. Finally, you go to the American consulate. We used finally because of its idea of being the last thing you do in a sequence. But don't forget, have all your documents. We use don't forget because this part is not necessarily in a sequence. Just remember to have all your documents. Now we have some details. The first one being imperatives. We have the main verb and a complement. For example, pay for the interview, schedule a date, go to CASV. Imperatives are used to provide instructions. Second aspect is sequence expressions. We used first, second, then, after, finally. These expressions are used to create a sequence. And last but not least, we have other expressions like don't forget, which is used to provide extra information. Our next example is organizing a trip, which is not necessarily easy, but you don't have a sequence of steps in organizing it. You can organize however you want. In our case, the first example is you should save money, right? You need money to travel. You can look for hotels. Researching is very important. Remember to select a destination. You kinda need to know where you're going. You could read about restaurants. Well, that's kind of for me because I love food. You might need a passport, depending on where you'd like to go. If it's in Brazil, you don't need a passport, but if it's abroad, you definitely need a passport. And you may book a flight. It is fast and safe. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but in the last example, we didn't use sequence expressions because we used modal verbs. And with the modal verbs, we have implicit ideas. For example, you should save money. It is a suggestion. You kind of need money to travel. Of course, it depends on where you want to go. You could read about restaurants. It is a possibility. Not everybody do it, but you sure can, so it is a possibility. And there was no sequence. You can organize your trip however you want. The second aspect is there was no sequence expressions. You can organize your trip again however you want. If you want to save money last, if you want to book your flight first, then look for a hotel. That's up to you. And last but not least, expressions we used remember to provide extra information. Okay, so guys, prepare your classes, do your exercises, and I see you in the next video. Bye bye.